Max Lugavere is a health and science journalist who has spent the last 10 years working on a documentary called Little Empty Boxes about dementia prevention. The project was inspired by his mother's struggle with a rare form of dementia called Lewy body dementia, which combines symptoms of both Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. Lugavere describes how he first noticed his mother's cognitive decline when she couldn't recall basic information like the current month during a family gathering. This led him to move back to New York to help care for her and accompany her to various doctor's appointments. Through this experience, Lugavere became frustrated with the conventional medical approach to dementia, which he felt was too focused on diagnosis and medication rather than prevention or addressing root causes. He began extensively researching the science behind cognitive decline and dementia, which led him to discover that these conditions often begin decades before symptoms appear. This realization motivated him to create his documentary and dedicate his career to educating people about brain health and dementia prevention. Lugavere discusses a major scientific fraud case that was recently uncovered in Alzheimer's research. For decades, the prevailing hypothesis about Alzheimer's disease has been the amyloid hypothesis, which posits that the accumulation of amyloid beta protein plaques in the brain causes cognitive decline. However, drug trials targeting these plaques have consistently failed. In 2006, a paper published in Nature seemed to provide crucial evidence supporting the amyloid hypothesis by identifying a specific variant of amyloid beta that correlated with cognitive dysfunction. This paper renewed faith in the hypothesis and directed billions of dollars in research funding. However, it was recently discovered that the images in this paper were fraudulent and manipulated. This revelation has called into question 16 years of Alzheimer's research and highlights the need to explore alternative hypotheses about the causes of dementia. Lugavere emphasizes that the heritability of Alzheimer's disease is quite low, only about 2 to 3%. Instead, he focuses on modifiable risk factors that people can control. These include obesity, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and insulin resistance. He notes that having type 2 diabetes increases the risk of developing Alzheimer's by 2 to 4 times. Some researchers are even referring to Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes due to the apparent connection between insulin resistance and cognitive decline. Other risk factors discussed include air pollution, exposure to certain pesticides and herbicides, social isolation, and sedentary lifestyle. Lugavere stresses the importance of addressing these factors in midlife, as the disease process often begins 20 to 30 years before symptoms appear. A significant portion of the conversation focuses on diet and nutrition. Lugavere advocates for a whole foods-based diet that prioritizes protein intake. He criticizes the prevalence of ultra-processed foods in the modern diet, noting that about 60% of the average person's calorie intake now comes from these sources. These foods are often engineered to be overconsumed and can lead to various health issues. Lugavere discusses the benefits of dietary fiber, explaining that it helps remove toxins from the body by binding to bile acids in the gut. He also mentions the potential benefits of ketogenic diets for some people with cognitive issues, as the brain can use ketones for energy when glucose metabolism is impaired. The conversation touches on various dietary debates, such as the merits of plant-based versus animal-based diets. Lugavere takes a balanced approach, acknowledging the nutritional benefits of both plant and animal foods. He emphasizes the importance of red meat as a nutrient-dense food source, contrary to some popular health advice. Exercise is highlighted as one of the most effective interventions for both preventing and managing cognitive decline. Lugavere shares that exercise was one of the few things that seemed to help his mother after her dementia diagnosis. He discusses how resistance training and maintaining muscle mass can have significant benefits for overall health and longevity. The podcast also covers the importance of regular movement throughout the day, even for those who engage in structured exercise. They discuss the concept of exercise snacking, brief bursts of activity throughout the day, such as doing 10 bodyweight squats every 45 minutes, which can help regulate blood sugar and counteract the negative effects of prolonged sitting. Lugavere raises concerns about various environmental toxins that may contribute to cognitive decline and other health issues. He mentions chemicals like phthalates, which are found in many everyday products, and discusses how these can act as endocrine disruptors. The conversation touches on the challenges of studying these compounds due to their non-monotonic dose responses, meaning that low doses can sometimes have different or more significant effects than higher doses. Air pollution is identified as a major risk factor for dementia, with studies showing that exposure to fine particulate matter, PM2.5, is associated with increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. Lugavere recommends using air purifiers and taking other steps to reduce exposure to indoor and outdoor air pollution. The podcast covers various lifestyle interventions that may help prevent cognitive decline. Sauna use is discussed, with Lugavere citing research from Finland showing that regular sauna use is associated with reduced risk of Alzheimer's disease and other health benefits. Cold exposure is also mentioned, though its specific effects on dementia risk are less clear. Lugavere emphasizes the importance of sleep and managing stress. He also discusses the potential benefits of intermittent fasting, though he cautions against viewing it as a magic bullet. The conversation touches on current research into potential treatments for Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. Lugavere mentions studies looking at drugs like semaglutide, which is currently used for diabetes and weight loss, for their potential cognitive benefits. He also discusses research on intranasal insulin as a possible intervention for improving cognitive function in people with Alzheimer's. However, Lugavere remains skeptical of pharmaceutical approaches to treating dementia once it has been diagnosed, given the complex and long-term nature of the disease process. He emphasizes that prevention and early intervention are likely to be more effective strategies. Throughout the podcast, Lugavere offers practical advice for listeners looking to improve their brain health and reduce their risk of cognitive decline. He suggests starting with small, manageable changes like drinking water before coffee in the morning or focusing on eating a protein-rich breakfast. He emphasizes the importance of consistency and gradually building healthy habits over time. For exercise, he recommends starting with simple activities like walking if more intense exercise seems intimidating. He also suggests trying group fitness classes or activities like martial arts to make exercise more enjoyable and social. Lugavere encourages listeners to be mindful of their food choices, emphasizing whole foods over processed options. He suggests being present and avoiding distractions while eating to help regulate appetite and food intake. The conversation concludes with Lugavere expressing gratitude for the opportunity to share evidence-based research with people in a practical and accessible way. He acknowledges the limitations of nutrition science and the importance of being honest about what we do and don't know. Lugavere encourages listeners to check out his documentary, Little Empty Boxes, which he describes as the most important work he's ever done. He also mentions his podcast, The Genius Life, and his books as resources for those interested in learning more about brain health and dementia prevention. Overall, the podcast provides a comprehensive overview of current understanding and research on dementia prevention, emphasizing the importance of lifestyle factors in maintaining cognitive health. Lugavere's personal experience with his mother's dementia adds a poignant and relatable dimension to the scientific information presented, underscoring the real-world impact of this research on individuals and families.